without further ado, let me just introduce Jack Bergman.
Can everybody hear me? And if at some time during the presentation my voice trails off and you all of a sudden can't hear me, just say, hey, can't hear you anymore, okay? Good, I'm not tethered. Is there anybody here representing the press? When you're in uniform, that's the first question you ask. All right. Is there anybody here who doesn't want to beat Hillary Clinton? Okay, so far we're 100% on both counts. If you don't want Hillary Clinton to win, we as a Republican Party need to make sure that we put the best people in the races downrange of our Republican nominee to make sure that when people go to the polls on November the 8th, that it's a Republican victory, period. That is beginning with the end in mind. So why would I start a conversation by asking that? Well, I'm going to tell you one. I believe that there is one person running in the Republican primary here in the 1st District that's going to take place on August 2nd who can beat Lon Johnson, and you're looking at him. Now, there's going to be a Democratic primary, but if anybody thinks that Lon Johnson's not going to be the Democratic nominee, I'd like to hear you tell me why. You're looking at the guy who's going to beat Lon Johnson. Why would I say that? Well, rational thought doesn't necessarily play in political outcomes. Policy people who have done that across the spectrum of their careers aren't necessarily the kind of leaders that are going to get elected and be able to execute the duties at the highest levels. Okay? We're talking an office here in the 1st District for Washington, D.C., not Lansing. And sometimes in the discussions that I've had with different folks and the problems we've identified, it's very easy to get confused as to where decisions are actually made. The problem is a county problem or a state problem or a federal problem. So the reality is, in prioritization, we have to make sure we understand exactly what the issue is to put it at the right level. I'm used to doing that as a Marine. Now, quick bit of bio historically. The most important part of my bio that's out there a little bit, but I don't think it's on one of the pieces of paper. I'm a grandfather of 8. 4 grandsons, 4 granddaughters, and I'm in middle school for the 3rd time in my life. Once, as I did it, once when my kids did it, and now the 3rd time, we just had our oldest grandsons, one in California, one in Chicago, just graduate, and they'll be freshmen in high school next year. So the idea, are you about that age? Okay, so congratulations. You are our future. And when my grandkids, see how fast I can transfer the responsibility and all the challenges? When we look at our especially our grandchildren, because I look at a lot of people in the room here, I know you have grandkids. We were fortunate to have had our parents and grandparents who went through some really tough times in this country, in the Great Depression and World War II, that guided us. Think about why we're here today and why we care, because we know we got that passed along to us through our family history, those events around the dinner table, the family picnics, all of those things. It was instilled in us the responsibility of citizenship, the responsibility that we have to our communities, our churches, our neighbors, but it started by being responsible ourselves. So the idea that at this point in life, if I don't do everything I can possibly do to make life as rich as it's been for us, for our grandkids and your grandkids, then shame on me. I haven't given it all. And as a Marine for 40 years, I was used to giving it all. How many people here have served in the military? You know that when you signed up and when you took the oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that you were signing a blank check payable with your life. That's a commitment. Hopefully, we would never have to do that again. But we know we had a reminder as recently as a couple of days ago that the world is not a safe place. That within our own borders, we have very bad people intent on doing harm to us as much as they can. Whether we like it or not, it is a reality that we have to live and deal with. Well, why is that important? Do you realize we have the lowest number of veterans, and not only veterans, but combat veterans in Congress since World War II? So when it comes to considering the use of military force, whether it be abroad or actually deployment within our own borders, we don't have enough people in Washington, D.C. to make solid decisions about what that really means. Very few have been boots on the ground, and even fewer have sent people into combat. The second toughest thing I've ever done is to go into combat myself. The toughest thing I've ever done is to send the sons and daughters and grandsons and granddaughters of others. That is tough. We need more people in Congress who know what that really means. Tony mentioned about what is a conservative. You know it when you see it. You know it when someone does it. You don't necessarily know it when you hear the word. But I will give you one example. Anybody here not know how to balance a checkbook? Ask that across the spectrum of people. I grew up in a family, we had all the money we needed. We just didn't need very much. Anybody here know the secondary use of a burned out light bulb? When a light bulb burned out in our house, my mother took it and she put it in her sewing kit. And depending on the size of the bulb, she put it in her sewing kit, so when her only son came in with holes in his socks, she put that sock over the light bulb and she darned that sock, because by golly, she wasn't going to have one of her kids going out and with a hole in their sock. Okay, that gives you an idea of how I was raised. By the way, my dad's family came to the Upper Peninsula in the 1880s. They were miners from Sweden. My dad left the Upper Peninsula in 1925 because as getting out of high school, there was no work. His parents had passed away, and he and a couple of his buddies went to Minneapolis to seek work. He found my mom, and you know how that goes. And I was born and raised through high school in a little town called Savage, Minnesota, south of Minneapolis, little farm town. I started coming back to the UP 35 years ago, found property, but again, being a little frugal. As Marines are more than frugal, we're just flat cheap. We are. There was a time in the 1970s where we prided ourselves on the federal budget. If we got, pick your number, if we got $100 million at the end of the year, we try to give back $1 million or so just to show the American taxpayers that we weren't wasting their money. But the point is, when you're raised the way I was raised by a family that we had all the love and all the discipline and a roof over our heads and the parental interaction and guidance, I'm blessed. And as my youngest daughter, the school teacher, career school teacher, says when I challenge her on why aren't we teaching writing in the 5th grade, and she came out of that, shoot at me, and she says, Dad, I get 6.2 hours a day with these students. She says, I've got the curriculum, but first I have to teach things like courtesies, respect, dignity. Before the class can even begin to coalesce and I can learn, or they can learn. She says, all the things we got around the dinner table, I have to teach in school. So when we look at the family, when we look at our educational system, did I say I was fiscally conservative? I got a plan. I got a plan. Number one, get the government, the federal government especially, out of the education business.
Right.
First of all, the government should be government is not a business entity anyway. But get the federal government out of the education business. Bring it back to the states. Let people choose whether you want to homeschool, whether it's charter schools, good public schools, private, whatever it happens to be. But when you do that, you send a message across the nation that, you know what, we've decided to take action to make sure that we get the government out of the businesses that they have no business being in. And when you start to do that, you then begin to control your expenses. There's plenty of money coming in on the revenue side of government, but our spending is just horrific. How do you do that? A good business will do 3 things continually. It continually evaluates the things that are doing today, the processes and all the plans and everything, that they should keep doing for the future. Then they look at what are they not doing that they need to start doing for their business. But the third piece that really separates the really successful businesses is that they look at what they need to stop doing because it no longer is relevant to their business model. Think about what we could gain in this country if we could get the government to stop doing things that all it is a drain on the resources. It provides no value to its customers, its consumers, which is us, okay? So when you think about that, that's kind of where my head is when it comes to fiscal conservacy. Can't even say the word. Conservatism. Anybody here want to discuss the Second Amendment? There's no reason to discuss the Second Amendment. It's written perfectly as it stands. People who want to discuss it have no idea what it means. There's no reason to discuss it.
I agree with the Second Amendment, but could you clarify your opinion on what the word infringe means? Because the Second Amendment says shall not be infringed, and to me that means there's a corral around it that you don't even get close to that or you get zapped.
Yeah. It's kind of like, not, take this seriously, it's kind of like back in the mid-90s when we were defining the word is. Okay, lawyers are paid to play over the words. The bottom line is, again, I haven't thought about the word infringed. Let's talk about that afterwards because I try not to give off-the-cuff answers, but I will engage. By the way, there's 1 of 3 answers to every question that you could ask. Here's what I know, no baloney. I have no clue, but I'll find out for you kind of what this is. I'd like to think about it, or I know but I can't tell you. And why that's relevant is the fact that I do maintain a fairly high security clearance still, and I may have knowledge of things that just, you could ask me a question here that this room is not clear for the answer, and neither are you, so I couldn't give it to you. And I hope you would respect that, because as we see what's going on right now, one of our presidential candidates, who shall remain unnamed, doesn't really understand what it means to have classified material on your computer. Okay? Come on. All right. I'll tell you what. The last thing is, and we kind of got into this with the Second Amendment, we have a framework by which we can solve the vast majority, if not all, of our problems, especially as we begin to prioritize it, debate it, figure out where it falls in the priority, and that's called the Constitution. use it. These people who want to rewrite everything every time something comes up, they obviously haven't done the thought process on the front end to see if they actually had a reference document that they could help solve their problems. So let's start using the Constitution. Let's start educating our kids in a way that they can be successful citizens when they turn 18 and take the next first step in life. And let's make sure that we just stop the crazy spending. So having said that, if anybody doesn't know what I'm running for, the first district, congressional district, the primary is August the 2nd. My name, Jack Bergman, is on the Republican ballot. So when you go August 2nd, anybody here going to vote absentee? Because we do. Okay. Just make sure, pull that Republican ballot and mark my name. You'll have two other choices, but just remember, you got ABC. B is always the best answer in a multiple choice question. B is going to get you that 80% answer. Okay? So having said that, let's throw it open for some questions now, and we'll let that drive the rest of the time here. By the way, there's water over here. If at any time you get thirsty, now I'm thirsty because I've been talking, I've been doing this, but please feel free to grab it. I know that. Only he did it on camera.
You're not on camera?
Right.
You mentioned operating according to the Constitution. What are some areas where you've seen the current Congress not function according to the Constitution?
Well, number one, they don't write wasn't the Congress supposed to write comprehensive laws, pass legislation? They're getting all involved in policy. They write a basic framework of a law, and then all the policymakers the policymakers within the bureaucracies are, to a large extent, justifying their own existence. So therefore, Congress needs to get back to writing comprehensive laws that then set the bar for the regulatory, whatever those bureaucracies are underneath. That, I think that is probably the single biggest thing that the Congress does from the longhand side. The other thing is that they have the power of the purse. Use it. If you're going to vote against something, vote against it and then defund it. One good example is Planned Parenthood. Defund it. So don't talk out of both sides of your mouth. So I guess those are the two right off the top that I would suggest to you. And someone says, what laws are you going to, what would be your hot button? I got a lot of hot buttons, but the idea, there's some things we need to kind of repeal first. To some of the craziness, and I'm not going to get into specifics here because there's too many. Everybody has their little pet ones that we go, does that make sense? And it doesn't. But how many here have actually tried to read some of the laws that are written just at the state level? How is it? How you doing in understanding it? I get lost, and I used to be pretty good at reading comprehension. So we need to be able to write laws that actually people can understand and not are so tagged with amendments and all little wordings, all little nuances, because that's what it's about. Simplify it. What else? Sir.
You started your speech off by saying you're the best candidate to beat Lon Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
How?
How?
Can you repeat the question?
Oh, he said I started my speech off by saying I'm the best candidate to beat Lon Johnson. Now, I guess I'm going to invoke this one. I know, but I'm not going to tell you. Because I have some other people in the room here. Blake is representing Jason Allen, and I'm in the middle of a campaign race right now. Anybody here representing Tom Casperson? Okay. But I do have a strategy.
Understood.
And I can't wait to get my hooks into him. I am brand new to this. I have never run in a political race. As a senior military officer, we were not part of political parties. We were absolutely apolitical. We swore to, support and defend the Constitution. We didn't swear an oath to a person or a party or anything. But I don't come without strategy. If I didn't think I could win this, I wouldn't be here. Stephanie.
The pro-life movement has been stupacked many times by Republicans claiming to be pro-life and Democrats claiming to be pro-life in his case. And there's not really much difference anymore between the two, in my opinion. But claiming to be pro-life, and then they get to Washington and they continually vote for some bill that funds Planned Parenthood. If a bill, no matter if it's for unicorns, for 3-year-olds, or, phones
I might have
for
to consider.
everyone.
I might have to consider unicorns for seniors.
Unicorns for seniors. Well, I'm sure Bernie Sanders will give them unicorns too.
Well, maybe I'll get that policy.
No matter what that bill is for, will you, if there is a funding for Planned Parenthood or any other abortion provider, will you vote for that bill? Yes. or no?
Yes, and I'll tell you what. Yes, I will. Will I?
Will you vote for that bill?
Will I vote for the bill to defund it or fund it?
Any bill that's, or
how-
anything that funds it, or a standalone bill that will defund it. I guess, so there.
But now you just asked me
I know.
yes and no,
See,
or
you're
no
always
and yes.
right now. I guess my question was,
The point is,
Yeah.
here's. Let me give you a different answer to that question.
okay,
Planned Parenthood is broken. Like so many other elements of government. The only way, in an event like that, the only way you get it rebuilt, if there is a future and a way that Planned Parenthood should help in the future, is to basically burn it down. In other words, don't vote for it, defund it, and if it comes back, because it now has a mission that actually makes sense, whatever that might be, then you consider it the time. But the answer is, I will not vote for it. If there's a vote to defund it, I will vote for the vote. Will vote for the bill to defund it. Okay, because it's broken. You cannot, going back to what I mentioned a little while ago about government or any business stopping doing things that no longer are valuable to that, they're not providing a positive outcome. You have to stop doing it. And the only way you stop doing it is to just eliminate it. And then if it re-rises again in a different form, then it's considered in a different form. But you can't just say, well, we'll just take it out little by little, because you never know what's going to be improved and what's going to stay there. So you have to start from zero. What else? Man.
Well, it's my opinion that bees aren't always good. I supported our last congressman and I was really disappointed in him. So,
Darn.
When,
How about bees with 2 syllables? How about bees with gray hair? How about marine bees?
One of the things you ran on was enough was enough until it wasn't. And, I am just, a lot of us are tired of being disappointed. And I think our anger is righteous anger that's deserved. And, the hardest thing is, there's no accountability. Once someone's in office, we can't do anything about it. But I guess my question for you is, how are you going to do it? You're talking about defunding certain things. You get promises like that all the time.
I'm going to answer your question with a question. Does anybody in this room think Marines are different? and anybody, all we have, what you have when you look at me is, and I'm not, let's do a comparison with Dr. Benishek for a minute. You look at his career and what he did, and you look at my career and what I did. we are two very, very different animals with two very, very different perspectives. He had the perspective of a surgeon who was largely in control of his operating room and cared for patients, both honorable things. I have the perspective of being a Marine general, commanding both in peace and in combat, being in control of $1 billion budget, in control of basically 100,000 people with 183 sites across the country, deploying troops all over the world. That was my last 4.5 years, 2005 to 2009. Anybody ever fly on Northwest Airlines? Okay, I could have been your pilot. So I was used to taking responsibility on almost a daily basis for the lives of people. And when I wasn't doing that stuff, I was, and still am, a business owner, small business in the medical equipment arena. So I come to this moment with 3 unique perspectives that all involve leadership, experience, and accountability. So that's why I'm different from Dan Benishuk. He only had one perspective when he got into this. I was born recently, but not yesterday. Okay? So I am a bit of a different animal. And if that appeals to you, then if you're happy with the status quo, I'm not your guy. Okay? But if you think that we can do better and must do better, because I believe we must do better, then I'm your guy. And you know what? I'm not going there to ascend to the next rung of my political career ladder. Already had careers. I'm going to the fight. That's what Marines do, and I'm representing the voters of the 1st District. Okay.
So do you have more Marines that can go up there with you?
Yes, in fact, do you have any friends in Florida or southeast Wisconsin? Guys, you got a couple of Marine buddies running for Congress there. Okay, yes, there is short answer is yes.
I think we need, how many 100,000 did you?
I oversaw 100,000, I was responsible for 100,000 folks.
Could you get like 50 or so?
Well, you know, every good operation and long-term result starts small and starts as a movement and starts with more and more people who actually have the similar philosophy of we're here to get things done for our constituents. We're not here for ourselves to sit. In fact, as Marines, when we weren't in the fight, we were always talking about how the hell do we get out of here? We didn't want to stay, whereas you look at what happens in DC, people are sitting around talking about how can we stay here? That's a little backwards. Okay? Sir?
One of the big concerns is people's concern of our large donors and acting and voting in the favor of your donors. Are we going to see later down the road, once you're in office, a whole string of list of medical companies and equipment companies making large contributions to your campaign or your office, and you voting for those? Are we going to have that concern?
No.
I have a question for after you're in office. Where would you stand on something that's been bothering me for several years, but more so this current primary season than before? This deals with the election laws. Because the best of my knowledge, I've never, from my high school history classes, that our founding fathers drew up the Constitution as they did the election laws. Man running for president or whatever political office is elected to the office he's running for by the popular vote, by the American people. But that's not the way it is. It hasn't been that way for the past 20 years, if not longer. They got this college electorate crap.
It's been around for a while. Been around a long time.
No, that's not the popular vote. They handpick these people to be delegates?
That's one of those things that,
Where would you stand on?
well, I tell you, when you prioritize, I don't have a stand on it yet, only because with all the other issues that we have facing us right now as a country, if everything is a number one priority, nothing is a number one priority, we need to get some things done first. That could be a top 10, but it's not a top 5 for me. I'll be perfectly honest with you, okay? When it comes to debating and deciding what it is, the important things that we have to do in our country, first of all, we've got to get good people into office so they can prioritize on some things first. If we start with that, we'll never get anything done. I'll be just flat honest with you, we'll never get anything done. Not that we won't long term, but not on the front end. Amy.
I have an announcement and I have a question at the same time. This doorway here indicates that this restroom has male and female in the same one. Unfortunately, that's not a good direction because if you go in that door, the women's is on one side and the men's is on the other. And there's a hallway there, so they're separate. My question to you is when the president makes an executive order, should it happen to be Hillary, what would you do to stop those kind of executive orders?
I don't know. I don't know, because the president has the authority to create executive orders, yes. But I would suggest to you, one of the reasons the president is doing what he's doing is because Congress is not keeping him busy enough so that telling the president, here's what we need done as Congress. And if the president, any president thinks they can run over the Congress, they're going to do a whole bunch of executive orders. Okay? So what would I do were you talking about specifically the bathroom issue or get the president to stop with executive orders?
Executive orders that are out of order with the Constitution.
Yeah, they are. And that gets back to getting people in Congress who are willing to sit down and really figure out, and I'm not an expert.
This Congress is Republican. It hasn't censored this president. It hasn't done anything against him.
Would you agree that the majority in Congress, whether they be Democrat or Republican, their goal is to get reelected?
Yes.
So if you agree that that's the reality, you already have identified the problem. Dealing with the issues is going to be secondary. I'll tell you, folks. You know, whether you ask me the question or not, I'm going to give you an answer. Okay? Because the question comes up: how many terms are you going to serve? Real simple. You're going to tell me. You elect me, you'll decide. I'm not going to come back here every week and tell you what I'm going to do for you next week and try to gather a lot of money so I can run a re-election campaign. That's not how I work. You elect me, we won't agree on 100% of things, but what you will know, if I'm your representative in Congress, is that I'm giving you everything I've got and asking you for more, not from the standpoint of money, more engagement, more understanding. Thomas Jefferson expected that the citizenry of this country would be informed, educated about issues. Do you think he must be like a pork, a turkey on a spit in his grave doing revolutions about what he sees what's going on now, because people think they're informed because they watch their flat screen. And I don't care which channel you have on, you're 2 miles wide and 1/8 of an inch deep in a subject. So the way we begin to turn the ship is to get people who really don't care, wrong word, whose number one priority is not to get reelected. Their number one priority is to represent the people.
Amen.
And so, it's something. As a Marine, or anybody else who served in combat, our number one priority was mission accomplishment. And we knew what could potentially happen if we didn't do it right. We weren't worried about things. We were focused on what was the priority. Yeah.
We were founded as a republic, and we don't seem to be such a republic anymore. So, how does that impact how we move forward? Or do we go backwards? Should we be that republic once again?
What happened to the great republic in Rome? You know, it fell for longer than it stood, if you look at the timeline.
Yeah.
We, all you have to do is read, anybody here read the historian Will Durant? He wrote an 11-volume history of civilization that is painstakingly detailed in all areas. But all you have to do is read a little bit of history to see where we could potentially be, unless somebody steps up. When the Founding Fathers wrote the documents, they studied all the world civilizations to date and decided to include or exclude what worked and what didn't. Going back to that example earlier about start doing the things you're not doing and stop doing the things that aren't working. We need to start looking at where we are in relation to history and be realistic about it. Historians say that one of the reasons George Washington was as successful as he was during the time of the Revolutionary War was he had the ability to see life as it was, not how he wanted it to be. And because of that, he could look at a situation and say, not my first choice, but this is what we have to do to overcome this. That's a very rare trait. But that's, again, historians looking back. So, sir.
What's your main differences to the two other Republicans that are going for the?
Well, what's the main difference between myself and the other Republicans who are running? I am the non-career politician. That's number one. Number two, while I don't have a voting record like the other two do, I have a track record that you could read. I think I'm the only one with my own Wikipedia page. Okay, I don't do that. I didn't even know what a Wikipedia page was until one day some young Marine says, "Hey, General, do you know you got a Wikipedia page?" I went, "Is that good or bad?"
Depends who you are.
Okay. But the other thing is, I truly have led large organizations and been in situations where you had to come together with other groups, other cultures. You may all have spoken different languages in very stressful times to hammer out solutions that was neither side's first choice, but was the absolutely a good way forward for all concerned. So those are the differences. I'm not going to get into the fact that, you know, how attractive my wife says I am and all of that. But anyway, that's a difference. That's subjective. Yes, sir.
I happen to believe that issues are basically not the problem. The problem is most issues come because there's not a solid foundation under the issue. So as far as a stance on religion, do you have anything you want to share on that line?
Well, yeah. I was baptized and confirmed Lutheran. Went to a little school in Minnesota called Gustavus Adolphus College, Swedish Lutheran heritage. Part of our curriculum there, no matter what your degree was going to be in, you had to take 3 courses in religion. And the course that I use today, that I've used every day since then, is in comparative religion, because I was fortunate enough to have a great instructor and who also became a mentor. I'm a man of very deep faith. My relationship to Jesus Christ is my own. It evolved over time. And I pray every day, morning and night, and usually times in between, because I am thankful for what God has given us. And I believe that we are here by God's grace. Sir?
What special interest or body groups do you see yourself aligning with?
None.
What was that again?
What special interest or lobby groups do you see yourself aligning with? None. Now, let me just say that I seek education all the time. If someone wants to educate me on something that I don't know about, remember going back to that question you asked me and I say I have no clue, but I'll find out. I may need to call someone up and say, what about? But that, I don't consider that alignment because I have a passion to be informed about issues. I don't have to agree with you and I don't have to support you. And I'm not going to ask you for support. Just tell me what, from your perspective, tell me what's going on. Okay? Somebody else raised their hand a second ago. Yes?
Could you speak a little bit to what's going on in the VA and what you see other than the year-long wait lists and medical rationing? What do we do to start to turn this around for those people that have served?
Well, number one, veterans earn every benefit. Again, they wrote that blank check. They deserve quality, number one, of care. Now, I'm going to specifically talk about health care for a minute. The quality of care first, the accessibility of care second, and the affordability of care third, in that order. Because if you don't have quality, it doesn't make any difference what it costs. If you can't get it, it doesn't make any difference. So the Veterans Choice Program was out where you have the cards that you can go. So many, I've experienced this, not in this context, but in different ways, where a governmental program will roll out, and in the military, we call it fire and forget. You shoot the smart weapons, you fire it, it locks in, and you forget about it because you know it's going on target. Well, programs aren't fire and forget, but bureaucracies spend all this time and effort rolling out a program, and then 2 years later, someone says, "How's it working?" I don't know. Nobody told us how to, nobody told us to track it. So, quality, accessibility, affordability. The other piece here, now, I don't know, there's got to be other parts of the country that share this problem, but if you think about the lack of infrastructure that we have in the First District, internet, cell phones, but let's say internet, for a veteran to be able to have the ability, because I know veterans up here, I've met them, who have no internet at home. They're going to have to go somewhere to fill out a form or do something. We have to improve in significant measures in some areas here the ability of that veteran to interact, to make sure that they know where they are in the queue, what's going on, and the VA has the responsibility to be responsive. But the reality is, especially when you look at the younger veterans who grew up with using texting and using email, their expectation, they don't want, a lot of times don't want to talk to anybody on the phone on the front end. They want to see the dialogue going there. So you have where that's good news is now you have a record of accountability in that. But the VA is a bureaucracy. Anybody here Star Wars fan? Okay, Jabba the Hutt? Remember Jabba the Hutt? Jabba the Hutt was modeled after the creator of Jabba the Hutt was making a statement about bureaucracies. All they do is just gobble up more and get mad at you for why you would ask them to do something, and then they gobble up more. We have a Jabba the Hutt-like scenario in bureaucracies at all levels. So until we take some of the Hutt out of Jabba, or Jabba out of the Hutt, I don't know. The bottom line is our bureaucracies, anytime they don't serve us, once they get too large, they will function without ever serving their customer. That's just a fact in the study of organizational development. Ma'am.
I'll see if I can say this right, because sometimes it doesn't come out right. I feel we've been very much politically active over the years. Bernie was commissioner of Escota County, and we pay attention. I think the American people voting booth and they better just vote, well, I'll vote for this one. But I think they need to get involved and need to pay attention because, God help us, we have to protect this country. We are in deep trouble. I come from a foreign country and I thank the Almighty every day that I'm here.
You know, I couldn't, all I will say is you understand because you lived it.
Yes.
And God forbid that our children and grandchildren should ever have the perspective that you have, because we're trying to make them not have to live it.
And don't ever let them take your arms away. That's what they did in Belgium. And the Germans, Hitler could just come through Belgium and take it over because nobody had any arms to protect themselves. So please pray that our country comes through this because we're in deep trouble.
I'm going to tell you one little joke. How many Army people here? Okay. When I was stationed in Stuttgart, Germany in the late 90s, I used to get calls from various American ambassadors from around Europe and North Africa and wherever, and they'd say, we need some Marines. What do you got going? Well, we just need, we need about 15 or 20 Marines. Okay, great. We can give you 15 or 20. How soon do you need them? We need them tomorrow. Okay, good. Well, they'll be there and they'll bring this, and they'll bring their, their weapons. They said, oh no, you can't. They can't bring guns. We said, oh, well then you want the Army. The Army at the time, this is late 90s, the Army at the time would send soldiers, kind of like a UN peacekeeping force, to different places in the world unarmed. So we don't send Marines unarmed. If you want a Marine, they come with their weapon. And by the way, the Army finally picked up on the fact that was a good thing. No more Army jokes. All right.
What is your stance on our ever burgeoning debt?
Well, that's why
How are we getting out of that? I mean, have you? We are bankrupt. I mean,
We
nobody
are.
wants to admit it, but we are bankrupt. When you're almost $20 trillion in debt, and yet we're still giving foreign aid to other countries.
Stop. Number one, you got to stop printing money. You got to cut the spending to the point where you're down to bare bones. Again, think about that secondary use for the light bulb again, folks. Yeah. We're at the point where we have to have that mentality. So you can't keep printing money. You can't keep giving money. And just give it. Is there a reason to provide money to other nations at certain times? I would suggest to you when Alexander Hamilton put our fiscal system together, he talked about managing your debt for the greater, for the good of the country at the time, but then paying off the debt. We haven't. So, again, going back to the beginning, I'm a Marine. I'm cheap. Frugal. Now, you already found out I was an airline pilot. I told you that, right? Do you know how copper wire was invented? 2 airline pilots fighting over a penny. I rest my case. All right.
I have a question that's posed to me to ask for you of people who aren't here, but they want to know, what are you going to say when Paul Ryan, you get there to Washington and Paul Ryan gives you marching orders? What's going to be your response to Paul
I'll
Ryan?
probably say, thank you, Speaker.
And will you follow through on them, or will
You asked me what I was going to say.
What will be your actions, I guess, then?
Thank you, I'll consider that.
Will I consider different?
I'll consider that. I will consider any opinion until it's time to not consider it. Just like as a Marine, I am nice until it's time not to be nice.
You are the 3 stars, right?
Yep.
Ranking. It would be fair to say that over those 3 stars, you had to come across some compromises because it's naive to think that everybody was a superior, was on the same wavelength as you.
I would call it negotiations, not compromises. I don't like the word compromise because to me, compromise means you give up something near and dear to you. I'm not going to, I'm not gonna do that. Again, it's like trying to talk a Marine out of bringing his weapon. Not compromising, okay? I'm not gonna compromise on the fact that we need to cut spending. I'm not gonna compromise on the fact that we need to increase our capability to educate our folks. I'm not gonna compromise on the fact that we need a strong national defense that now, unfortunately, is focused inside our borders as well as outside our borders, okay? So I will negotiate with you till we're done, and then when we're done, if we're not done, we're gonna negotiate some more, okay? But not compromise.
How do you feel about our involvement with the United Nations, with the UN?
I think they should have a building in some other country if they existed at all.
Illegal immigrants.
There's legal immigration and illegal immigration. Shame on us if we shortchange the people who came here legally and are trying to go through the process by letting others. How do you handle that? Cut off the freebies. Pure and simple, just cut off the freebies, see who stays. Worker, visiting worker programs, the H-2A, H-2B, we need them. We need people to come to this country for the harvest season, go back to their country. It works, because we can't man it ourselves. I mean, it works for everybody involved. But you control the numbers. You do that. Everybody knows who's here. The employers are accountable for it.
Well, that leads to sanctuary cities.
Well, what do we got here? Somebody said the other day we had no sanctuary cities in Michigan: Detroit, Lansing, and Ann Arbor.
Yeah.
Okay, no, you can't have sanctuary cities, because then you're just making an exception. You can't always say, well, here's the rule. Oh, by the way, now here's the exceptions. No. Tony.
Back military speak. So you have a bunch of troops work for you. Some of them know what they're doing, and some of them don't. I guess, and I don't want to. It's not life and death kind of question. It's more of a working relationship kind of question. But can you save somebody who doesn't want to be saved? And I say that in the context of, are they going to stay a Marine? Are they going to get out? Are they going to pass a class? Some tests, that kind of thing. Really, the gist of it is our own responsibility to ourselves and your responsibility to your troops. What takes precedence? How do you manage the relationship?
Well, let me. I think I know where you're going. Let me just say this: that the Marine Corps, I won't speak for the other services, but I'm guessing it's pretty close. The Marine Corps does not exist to serve the Marines. The Marines who serve in the Marine Corps serve the Corps. That's what moves the organization forward. If 100 young men and women join the Marine Corps today, at the end of their first enlistment, roughly 75 of them would say, it's been fun, but I'm going on to civilian life. So we build a career force on about 25%. Maybe pretty close in the Army, maybe a little higher than that percentage stays in the Navy and the Air Force and the Coast Guard, because they have more technical things. Marine Corps and Army we're straight leg infantry. And that's a skill for very young, sturdy folks. But the point is, since we're focused on subordinating ourselves to our service, the service is more important than we are, it's greater than we are focused on accomplishing the mission that is assigned to us. If someone is not making it, we have to take them off the team. They may not like it, but standards are standards. So the idea that someone, just because they're in the Marine Corps, gets to continue or gets to do what could cause harm to the Marine on their left and right, you have to make tough decisions. Tough decisions is, You know, you're a good person, but I'm only taking 30 people, and you're number 31, because I'm the commander and I'm responsible for the accomplishment of the mission and the welfare of the Marines. Sir.
How do you feel about the Con-Con? Constitutional Convention?
I haven't given it that much thought, but I would suggest to you that if this country is going to progress, what we talked about before, about maintaining our, you know, we were founded as a republic, how do we move forward? I think once we've got people who are actually involved, informed, and engaged, why not? By the way, don't let the media in on it. Because they will just, you know, whatever. Well, I think we have to consider what's best going forward with the continued involvement of more and more citizens.
Two questions. One, how do you feel about the wall? And tomorrow there's...
The Berlin Wall?
Okay.
Okay.
And, you know, securing our borders, keeping us a sovereign nation as opposed to anything goes. And two, okay, I lost the second one. I'll come back to that. Okay.
Well, I think, you know, two elements of the preamble provide for the common defense and secure the blessings of liberty when you're talking about securing the borders. Think about Michigan as a state. We've got land borders. We've got water borders. We, as a country, have to secure our borders. Now, whether or not, let's use the example here, let's say we built a wall. What's the first thing? Now, a wall is a symbol, and it's also a real thing. So if you're the person wanting to get across that wall, what are you going to do? Under, over, or, see, the third piece with Mexico is around. Now, I don't think this is, in fact, I know this isn't classified. But let's talk about those who import illegal substances into this country from South and Central America. How do you think they get here? I don't know. They go right now, they go far enough out to sea that they're outside. And they build their own little submarines, and by the way, they're one trip. They scuttle them when they're done. So the point is, if you think that building a wall is going to secure the border, no. By the way, those last 4.5 years that I was on active duty, I wore another hat, which was why I had this an office and staff in Colorado Springs. I represented all the Marine Corps activities to Northern Command, so I spent a lot of time in Mexico dealing with issues, collaborating with the Mexican Marine Corps and the Navy. And the point is, there are some very sophisticated elements of those who oppose us that are in play, and they're being dealt with every day. Did you think of the second one? See, I know if I talk long enough, you'd think of it.
So I think tomorrow there's a vote on women for the draft.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you know, I guess my thought is, and by the way, I'm the father of daughters. Okay. My wife is the mother of sons. And betwixt both, we licked the platter clean. Wasn't that, you know, Jack's Brad, whatever. If we are a society that really does believe that everybody should have equal obligations in its citizenship, why wouldn't everybody at the age of 18 register for the draft? I think that's time for a national debate. I don't think Congress should decide it. I think they should get input, and if people want to throw it into a forum and talk about it, that's what this country's about. Let's lay it out there to see what makes sense going forward.
Well, it seems to work in Israel, don't they?
Yeah. Well, how do we instill a sense of purpose in our young people that they've got a vested interest? The folks, Lucianne and her husband just left, but she was born in Belgium. How do we instill in our young folks that sense of personal responsibility that they have as citizens? So I think it's time to talk about it anyway.
Regarding the draft,
By the way, are you their daughter? Oh, are you their son? No, are you with each other?
Watch out, he's a general, he might draft you right now.
Okay, anyway.
What would your opinion be of someone who objected to the draft because they saw the United States military evolving into mercenaries for the one world government?
I would suggest to you we have a process already. It's been a conscientious objector status, right? Still in process, right? You want to file as a conscientious objector, that's your right. That's one of the beauties of the country we live in.
See, it just seems to be the direction we're going in. And if we don't have some big changes.
I do have a short answer for you though.
Yes.
You need to have more veterans in Congress. Because without veterans in Congress to make those decisions going forward about the use of the military, and by the way, it's not an all volunteer force, folks, it's an all recruited force. So think about it. And the point is, if we want to revisit the fact that we need for a draft and we have compulsory service, not necessarily military service, but service from the age of 18 to 20, be the Forest Service, could be the Public Health Service, it could be whatever it is, but you have an obligation, I think it's probably time that the country takes a look at it. Because how do we grow our 18-year-olds into the 40-year-olds who are now family people, business owners, teachers, pick your career, and how do we teach them, take them then when they're in their mid-50s so that now they're the mentors, the community leaders, and in their senior years, you know, that they still have this passion for the country in which they live. Nothing is free. Nothing is free. And if it is free, I guarantee you it's not worth anything and it's not enduring. I had a chance last Saturday to be at a plaque. By the way, unless there's any more burning questions, I'm gonna close it off here. But I had a chance last Saturday at Manistee to attend a plaque dedication ceremony for Corporal Dwayne Dewey, Marine Corporal, Korean War, who dove on a grenade to save a corpsman and another Marine. The grenade went off, and he survived. Everybody else survived, and he was awarded the Medal of Honor for his heroic actions. When he was presented the Medal of Honor by President Eisenhower in 1953 timeframe, President Eisenhower said, "You are the man of steel." And by the way, Corporal Dewey is still spry. He doesn't walk as fast as he used to. But the point is, at the age of 18, 19, he stepped up. He went and did what was necessary to do. But after that, he lived a life of example in his community, not by running around telling people what he did, by actually being a business owner, being a school teacher, being a father, and being an example of humanity that people can aspire to. That's what we need more of. Kids do not know who they are until they have someone that they can look up to and emulate. And if you look at some of the examples we've got, they're not very good. So thank you all for being here tonight. August 2nd. August 2nd. Okay. Pardon me? Are you going to get a phone call? We could. I don't know if that's legal or not. But the point is, thank you for being here. Thank you for any and all support between now and then. We have anybody who'd like to take some yard signs. Blake, you're in charge of the yard signs here in Gaylord since you're from here. Just make sure they're still there. You don't have to put me out. You just have to make sure they stay where they are. Okay? Blake's a Marine. He knows what I'm talking about. There is equal time for all. But anyway, thank you. And I'm not leaving right away here. But because you're here, you care. I'm here because I care deeply, and I have a plan to represent you in Washington, D.C. Thanks for coming here. Hope my Army joke wasn't too bad.
I had the pleasure of meeting you in Alcona this past week.
Yeah. Okay, I thought
I just happened to be around here, and I was like, I was happy to come see you again.
Well, good. Your wife asked me the question about immigration.
Yeah, exactly. And what Trump said about the specific way about the judge and all that stuff.
Anyway, don't you're right.
No, you're good. You're completely good. I just wanted to come and say hi again.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Hey, thank you very much.
Hey, thanks for coming in, brother.
Yeah. I'm going to take the yard signs.
Yeah. Take two, they're free.
Are you posting any of that stuff?
Oh, yeah, it'll be online too.
On the Facebook stuff?
On the Facebook stuff, yeah. His speech, some of the questions, we'll put what they are, what they're about. I think so. I think we got him for you. That's what I think.
No. I mean, when I met him this past weekend, Lieutenant General, I thought he was running the best race out of all three of them. And I think it just proves it. What was that gentleman's name?
It's funny. You love messing with him. He'll call him out. It's just, I think it's hilarious.
No, I think it's awesome. He should go into
it.
Good luck, guys.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Appreciate it. Yeah.